Chapter 2 is about research ideas. Probably the hardest part of research is to find a good and important topic to do your research. Usually you start with a general topic and then you make it more specific during the process of your proposal writing. Generally speaking, research topics could be categorized into three groups. One is research or topics that focus on groups of people like preschool children or police officers. And then the topics that are about a specific behavior like overeating or test anxiety. And the third one are general topics like motivation or job stress or personality. When you want to do your research, probably you can use 6 sources of research topics. First, you can choose a topic that you like. For example, a topic about your favorite course or your favorite subject. For example, you like to use computers in teaching and you want to do a research on it to see how you can make it more effective. Also, you may choose a topic that is based on your observations or information that you get from some sources. So anything that makes you curious to see why this is happening could be a source for your research topic. For example, you are in a science department and you see there are not many black women in the science program and you're wondering why, and you want to do a research on that. There are also some practical issues that a lot of people want to do a research to see, what method works or what are the best way of doing things, and also some problems that you have in your work environment. For example, last semester 6 students failed in your course. I want to see what went wrong last semester that this happened. You want to do like an action research to figure it out. And also there are some fleeting thoughts or pop-up ideas, something like happened to the scientist who was resting under an apple tree and the apple fell, and he was thinking why this happened. For example, something happened in your neighborhood. I want to see why this happened and what could be done to prevent this kind of things to happen. The next resource is probably the most popular one, that you're reading a book, you're reading a magazine, you're seeing a website, or you're even watching a movie or a cartoon or an advertisement, and that gives you an idea for a research project. And finally, some ideas come from theories like learning theories or behavior theories, and probably this is the best type of research that you can do. You learn about a theory and then you want to do a research to verify that theory or disprove that theory. For example, there is an argument between a general and multiple intelligence theories. There are people who say, people either are smart or not, and there are other theories that nobody is smart in everything. We have multiple intelligences, and you want to see which theory is supported by research. Anyway, these are the 6 resources that you can use, but still, if you cannot come with an idea for this course, because as you know, in this course you're supposed to write a research proposal, and you have to start with a research topic. So if you don't have any idea what you want to focus, you can see the attached list to this slide, or simply come with some ideas, email me, and we can talk and come up with something that's useful and significant for your research proposal. Anyway, when you're thinking of research topic, you gotta consider some factors that is going to be used to evaluate your research. After you come with a general topic for your research, you have to validate this topic to see if it's a good one or not. How can you tell if a research is valid or it's a good topic for research? First, you look at effectiveness. Effectiveness means that you should ask a question that has a specific answer. Second is significance. A topic that you choose has to be important. For example, if you say, is there a difference between freshman and junior students, their color preferences? So even if you can find the answer, how does it help anybody? Then originality. That's the problem we have a lot in this course, because students read an article, they like it, and they want to do a similar research, and usually this is considered duplicate, and it's not a good idea to do a research that has already been done. For example, there are lots of research on comparing phonic and holistic approach in reading. If you want to do a research on this topic, your research has to be different. The fourth criteria is feasibility. Feasibility means that it's doable. You have time and money to do it, and the authority to do it, and you have access to the subjects. You have to consider it. Sometimes students come with an idea and I say, no, this is a very hard topic. This is not something that it's doable as a student research. Now that you learn how to find a good topic for your research, probably it's time to know parts of research article. Why do you need to know that? Because if you know how a research article is written, you can read articles more efficiently. A research article has 5 main parts: introduction, method, results, discussion, and references. In the introduction, you explain the research problem, why we need to do a research on this specific topic. You can have a separate section for the literature review. The literature review helps you to see what we already know about this topic, how much we know, and what we don't know yet, and what is needed to be investigated. You also include your research question, the purpose of your research, your hypothesis in this section. The next section, method, you explain the way you want to do your sampling, and also the way you want to prepare your participants, the way you want to ask questions, and the way you want to analyze your data. Next section is the results, in which you report the findings and your statistical analysis, and in case you have figures and tables, you put it in this section. And finally, in the discussion, first you summarize the research and the findings, you make some conclusions, and also you discuss the applications of your research, and you try to justify your findings, and also includes ideas for future studies. You also need to understand the difference between a topic, a research problem, the research goal, and the research question, because a lot of time these are not very clear to students and they don't use it appropriately. The topic is the general subject that you want to study. Like, for example, the topic of my research is distance learning. Very general. You don't know yet what I'm going to do for my research, but you know it's about distance learning or distance education. Then it's the research problem. every research is based on research problem, because if there is no problem, we don't need to do a research. For example, in this case, I see lack of students in distance classes, which means in comparing the online courses with the face-to-face courses, we don't see that many students interested in these courses, or the attrition rate is very high, and you want to do a research to see why this is happening and what could be done about it. The next term is the purpose statement, or the goal. The goal of your study in this case is to see why students don't attend distance education classes at a community college. And then we have research question. Research questions are very specific and they require specific answers. For example, does the use of interactive web pages help to increase the students' enrollment in distance education classes? So, for example, you want to compare interactive web pages with the normal PowerPoint presentations and see if you switch your PowerPoint presentations to interactive web pages, is it going to help with student learning? This is very specific, and that is your research question. And finally, you gotta know the difference between the primary and secondary sources for your research. I'm sure most of you already know that the primary source is a first-hand report of observation, somebody who has observed the documents or the evidence and has written about his or her observations. And a secondary source is a description or summary of another person's work. And the difference is that usually the primary source is very detailed, but a secondary source is a source that collects earlier investigations and put them together and synthesizes and makes conclusions based on earlier research. This could be done in a textbook and also in a type of research that we call them meta-analysis or review analysis. It's recommended that you start with secondary sources, and as you're reading the secondary sources, you choose a few primary sources for more details and more first-hand information.